So today we are going to talk about conflict and also negotiation. So conflict is part of, could be considered part of communication. So it's an extension of the communication class we've talked about. But I think it's a very important topic because it's something that a lot of us are not very good at. So we're going to be exploring how can you have good conflict? Well, my first question, I guess I gave the answer away. Well, but actually not really. So let me ask you this, do you think conflict is good or bad? How many think that conflict is good? Raise your hand if you think conflict is good. Okay. How many? Yeah. Okay. So how many think it's bad? Okay. So the correct answer is probably it depends, right? So it can be good, it can be bad. There's good aspects to conflict, there's bad aspects to conflict. So what are the good aspects and the bad aspect of conflict? What can be good about conflict? Yes? You can make relationships stronger. How does that happen?
Because once you're in the conflict, like you're going to fight and not talk to the person, or like just be upset with them, and then once things are resolved, you'll have a stronger bond.
Okay, so it can clear things up that if they're not cleared up, your relationship is not as strong. Were you going to say something along that line?
Yeah, like you say everything that is on your mind.
Uh-huh.
What you wouldn't say when you're not having that conflict.
Uh-huh.
Most
So-
of the time.
So more authenticity. Authenticity can potentially enhance a bond. It can also threaten a bond, right? If what you say to somebody is like, I really don't like you, I really don't like that aspect about you, that could be like, but it has the potential to strengthen a bond, right? Yes?
Yes, a good way to solve misunderstandings and problems.
Misunderstandings. If you always avoid conflicts, you might have very unclear communication happening, and you might persist in misunderstandings because you're afraid maybe of having a conflict, right? Also, related to this, conflict can help in problem solving. Problem solving often involves disagreements. So disagreement and conflict are related. What can be bad about conflict? We've talked a little bit about it, but
Can ruin relationships.
so it can damage. So the conflict can damage the relationship you have. So it can strengthen it, but it can also damage it, depending on what type of conflict you have, how you fight, the characteristic of the person. Yes?
People's feelings can be hurt.
Okay, so it can be unpleasant, right? Feelings run high during conflict, and they're often negative feelings, and it's unpleasant to experience those negative feelings. We'll get to that in a minute. So the chapter that you had to read, by the way, I wanted to ask you, did you have an easy experience with downloading the chapters, buying the chapters on Amazon? Was it okay? Yeah. First time we're doing it, so before we had a physical book, so okay, cool. So in the chapter, there's two types of conflicts that we talk about. We use big words, but it's pretty simple, the idea behind them. The first one is substantive conflict. And the idea of substantive conflict is it's conflict about issues. So you are working with a colleague at work. Let's say two engineers are working on this design of a new engine for an airplane, right? And they disagree about the approach that they should follow. They disagree about a particular technical point, right? Talking about their disagreements, the substance of their disagreement is substantive conflict. Socio-emotional conflict has to do with relationships. So the moment the two engineers start calling each other's names, say, you are such a, whatever, put a label there, that's socio-emotional conflict. And that's typically costly. So the idea in conflict is to try to stick to the substantive aspect of the conflict and to not go too far, not stray too far in the socio-emotional aspect of the conflict. Now, the problem is that it's very hard to separate the two. If somebody disagrees with my idea, chances are I might get defensive. I might think that people are implying that I'm not smart, that my idea was stupid. Now, think about how we talk, right? That was such a stupid idea, right? Or I don't, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work is better than that idea is really stupid. Now, if I say that idea is really stupid, there's one leap for me to say, oh, you're calling me stupid. But even if somebody says, no, that's never going to work, I might take it personally. I might think that's so. A key thing in conflict, one of the advices that I give to people is you should not refrain from disagreeing with people, but you should do it in such a way as to reassure them that you have a good relationship with them. So a good way to, if let's say I'm your boss, Elizabeth, and you did something for me that I'm not sure I agree with what you presented to me. If I say, Elizabeth, you're a very valued employee, I always like your inputs. I kind of disagree with what you wrote there. Let's talk about it, right? That's much better than if I just come and say, not sure that's going to work, right? Because you're not sure then, if I do that, especially if I'm your boss, you're going to be like, is he criticizing me? Is he like, now, where do I stand in our relationship, right? So always starting with reassuring, I really respect you, I really appreciate you, and then here's where we disagree. That's helpful. Now, even with that, some people are so sensitive to conflict that they're going to freak out. Right? So there's always the potential for freaking out in conflict. So we can talk about that. We all do, by the way. How many? Let's be honest here. How many of us occasionally freak out in conflict? Right? All of us, right? I mean, unless you're like Buddha or something. So that's part of the difficult aspect of conflict.